thank you very much for inviting me to deliver congratulatory remarks on the occasion of the 2025 Korea Defense Industry International Academic Seminar. This event comes at a crucial time because, as the title of this seminar says, we are facing a rapidly changing security environment. And that exactly was also the focus of discussions at the NATO summit 2 weeks ago in The Hague, in my country, the Netherlands. As you know, NATO allies decided to drastically increase their defense spending, driven by a more dangerous and unpredictable global security situation, and in particular, the long-term security threat posed by Russia. NATO allies agreed to spend substantially more on their core defense requirements and strengthen their defense industrial base. Because, in the words of NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte, there is no defense without a strong defense industry. And I think the Republic of Korea is a country that understands this very well. Korea's defense industry sector has experienced rapid growth and is now among the biggest, most impressive and innovative in the world. What is important to note here is that NATO is open to work with partners such as the Indo-Pacific Four, which includes Korea, to promote defense industrial cooperation. Defense industry cooperation among like-minded partners is especially relevant and needed now, as security in the Euro-Atlantic region and security in the Indo-Pacific region is becoming ever more interconnected. In a joint statement, NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte and the 4 Indo-Pacific partners stated that they will look to enhance defense industrial cooperation, including on key topics such as security of supply chains, development, production, and procurement. Possible areas for cooperation are, among others, the space and maritime domains, munitions, and emerging and disruptive technologies. Lee Sang-lak, the Korean National Security Advisor, who represented the Republic of Korea at the NATO summit, agreed to establish a working-level consultative body with NATO to enhance cooperation in the defense industry. So obviously, these developments offer promising opportunities for the Korean defense sector. The Asan Institute for Policy Studies recently said in a report that, I quote, "To fully capitalize on these opportunities, South Korea should treat defense industry cooperation not simply as a commercial venture, but as a core pillar of its broader security and alliance strategy." And I could not agree more. I would like to conclude with one last remark. You may have noticed that we are hearing the word a pragmatic approach a lot these days. And if you ask me, pragmatic is good, because who doesn't want to be pragmatic? However, we should also realize that in sensitive areas of foreign policy and security policy and defense, pragmatic cooperation can only happen if it is based on a set of shared strategic interests and common values. That means knowing who your friends are, knowing who you can trust, and knowing who you can count on. As far as NATO partners, Europe and the Netherlands are concerned, you can count on us. Kamsahamnida.
I will mention first the reasons behind the strengthening of European defense, second, the progress made in this matter, and third, the opportunities for cooperation between Europe and the Republic of Korea in this context. So first, the evolution of European strategic environment calls for a strong response and an accelerated rearmament. Europe is facing unprecedented threats and challenges since the end of the Second World War. Our security interests and those of our allies and partners are under direct threat. We must react to build a stronger Europe. France is convinced of this and has long been committed to the ambition of a robust and credible European Union, in the fields of security and defense. It is together that Europeans will best serve their security interests. NATO, based on solid transatlantic relations, remains essential for European security. However, in order to ensure its protection, that of its citizens, and the stabilization of its external environment, Europe must assert its strategic autonomy and thereby inseparably strengthen the European pillar of the Atlantic Alliance. In 2017, shortly after his election, President Macron delivered a landmark speech on Europe at La Sorbonne University. In that speech, he said that the only way to ensure our future would be the rebuilding of a sovereign, united, and democratic Europe able to provide security for its citizens. And that is what we are now building to a forced march due to the Russian threat. War against Georgia in 2008, annexation of Crimea in 2014, the Donbass War, large-scale invasion of Ukraine in 2022, the Russian threat is long-lasting. And Korea is also experimenting this threat in a certain way, with the consolidation of the Russia-DPRK alliance since 2023. Russia has reminded us that the grammar of the balance of power remains essential to protect our interests at a time when the power of the norm is sadly eroding. In the face of uninhibited force, international law is ineffective if not backed by deterrent capabilities and a will of steel. Thus, more broadly, Europe is also rearming itself to adapt to the evolution of alliances which are getting more unpredictable, to adapt to the extension of the fields of conflict, and to respond sovereignly to the challenges posed by new technologies. Consolidating the Europe of defense implies a change in European strategic culture, both at the level of member states and that of the European Union. We are 27 EU members with different cultures, different histories, and sensibilities. However, in the face of the challenges facing each and every one of us, we are witnessing currently a common realization and a shared will to react collectively. This is a real change of scale occurring as we speak. So second, within the European Union and within the framework of NATO, Europe is taking action to meet the challenges at hand. Discussions on strengthening European defense in recent years have enabled progress to be made towards a more credible, sovereign, and autonomous Europe of defense. France has always been at the initiative to design the European security framework and to promote the emergence of a European system able to respond to a context of increased competition. In 2022, when it held the presidency of the EU Council, France facilitated the work of the EU to ensure a rapid response to the Russian aggression of Ukraine. The EU took unprecedented, strong, and rapid decisions. Massive sanctions were adopted by the 24th February in the evening, and arms deliveries to Ukrainians were agreed on, financed by the European Peace Facility. Since the beginning of the Russian war of aggression, the EU and its member states have provided 59.6 billion euros in support of the Ukrainian armed forces. France hosted the European heads of state or government in Versailles in March 2022 to reaffirm the European unity in the face of the war of aggression against Ukraine, to work on solutions to strengthen European defense capabilities and to reduce strategic dependencies in terms of energy, raw materials, semiconductors, health products, food, digital, and so on.
If there's one thing I hope you take away from my remarks today, is that the United States is open for business. To that end, I will talk about what the U.S. government is doing to facilitate defense industrial cooperation with our allies and partners, and how U.S. defense trade regulations, the International Traffic and Arms Regulations, known as the ITAR, supports that effort. Our Secretary of State, Marco Rubio's first day in office, he told us, everything we do must make America stronger, safer, and more prosperous. And defense industrial cooperation is integral to this vision and at the core of these principles. President Trump recognizes that America must maintain the world's strongest and most technologically advanced military, coupled with a network of capable security partners. Therefore, the president signed 3 executive orders in April, directing the U.S. government to work with industry to reduce delays, improve efficiencies, and enhance the ability of our allies and partners to obtain critical defense technology faster while protecting the technological advantage enjoyed by our armed forces. One executive order established the policies for reforming foreign defense sales. A second reform defense acquisition processes. And a third seeks to strengthen our maritime industrial base. Successful implementation of the 3 executive orders will be vital to U.S. national security. Like 3 legs of a stool, we need all 3 lines of effort to be fully effective. But today, I'll highlight the first of these. The executive order on reforming foreign defense sales to improve speed and accountability applies to both government-to-government foreign military sales and direct commercial sales between U.S. industry and foreign partners. The main goal of the executive order is to shore up the U.S. defense industrial base while ensuring that our warfighters have the world-class capabilities they need to win on the battlefield. And when I say our warfighters, I mean those of the United States, as well as those of our allies and partners, because strengthening the capabilities of our allies to defend themselves is foundational to U.S. national security. In order to achieve this goal, the executive order will increase the speed and transparency of relevant approval processes using these following steps. First, the Department of State will reevaluate missile technology control, or MTCR, restrictions on Category 1 technologies and consider providing certain partners with missiles and unmanned aerial systems. Second, the Secretaries of State and Defense have asked Congress to increase the monetary thresholds of arms transfer that require congressional notification. Third, the Departments of State and Defense are discussing a list of priorities for conventional arms transfers. Such transfers should not harm U.S. military readiness and should strengthen burden sharing. Fourth, the U.S. government is reviewing and updating the list of defense equipment currently that can only be sold via foreign military sales, looking to see how we can open up additional opportunities for our industries to cooperate directly. Fifth, the State Department, in consultations with our Departments of Defense and Commerce, will continue to review and update the U.S. munitions list to focus those controls only on those commodities and technology that provide a critical military or intelligence advantage. Sixth, the U.S. government is looking to secure exportability as a requirement in the early stages of the acquisition process. All too often, we order systems that must then go through costly and time-consuming redesign for export to our allies and partners, even though we're aware that there will be extra opportunities as we kick off the program. Going forward, we will ensure that our industry is able to offer the new systems to our allies and partners much earlier.